Ta-da! I'm only saying that because time goes so quickly and there's so many things to do that I didn't even realize. I think the last time I've chatted with some people, I was letting you know I was on my way to the emergency room because I couldn't swallow or breathe. And someone had texted me, good old Pastor Streeter, all the way from Jerusalem, saying that he was glad that I was okay. So I think you guys, I don't know how much of the story you knew the last time, but I had a crown. I had a root canal, and then the crown was put on, the final crown was put on a couple of Thursdays ago, or last Thursday, I don't remember. I guess it was a couple of Thursdays ago. And then the next day, I had really hard time swallowing. And then, of course, you know, you do a little garlic, you do a little this, you do a little that, Dr. Dallas. And then Saturday, it was more difficult to swallow. And then things got better because I rested. I think it was Saturday that I just rested. And then on Sunday, I was feeling so terrific. It was my church's anniversary. So I decided to go there. The singing, we had Howard University's community choir. The singing was awesome. And so I was up singing and talking to people I hadn't seen in a while. I think that was just a bit much. And then I went and sat with my dad a couple of hours, and then all of a sudden I couldn't swallow, and then later on I couldn't breathe, and then I went to the emergency room. And it was an abscess. Pretonsillar abscess. They did an incision to drain it, nothing came out. And then they did another incision, a bunch of blood came out. Then they did some x-rays. And it was just because I think they didn't do the x-rays immediately. It was because I couldn't hardly breathe when I got there, and I couldn't hardly open my mouth. And they were able to see enough to know that it needed to be drained. But then it revealed that the abscess was a little deep-seated. So they just, you know how that goes. I went to the acupuncturist the next day, and we started doing a different track. And things got good very quickly. So anyway, that's that. I'm good. I think I did give you all a summary, because I remember saying thank you for your concerns, your prayers, your thoughts. And sometimes you just have to not listen to, because you all were like, you need to go to the hospital or whatever. I think typically I probably would have just kind of laid low and went to the acupuncturist on Monday. Of course, she doesn't see you on the weekend, so I think I got a little nervous and went. There's no rhyme or reason to it. In my particular case, it's a recurrent issue. It happened about 6 years ago. I have a small nodule on my right vocal cord, which I am supposed to just watch, because when I start speaking a lot, then it just things start to happen in this area. Remember that time? You guys remember I was going to Egypt? Not Egypt, I'm thinking Egypt because they're in Egypt right now, but to South Africa. I think I was going to be there 2.5 weeks, and I woke up the next morning, maybe 2 days before I was supposed to fly out, just brushing my teeth, literally just brushing my teeth in the mirror. You know, you brush your teeth in the mirror in the morning, and then I was like, what is that? And it was like a small knot growing out of my throat, and I was like, what? And then that was a whole episode. So I think whenever I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing for God, disseminating information to his people, going over to help, you know, educate the people in South Africa on holistic healing. I just started going back into the churches here recently. And so you just have to think that's the devil trying to just do his thing. And we are victorious. So that's that. But more importantly, I wanted to know if you guys got a chance to watch my pitch final. I just posted it not too long ago, because just finished up the whole We Back Innovate 3-day. It was actually here at the Mayflower Hotel, but it was a great 3 days. And so my pitch is there, the final. We had 3 minutes, but if you look at the tape is like 4.5 minutes. I wonder if I went over. I mean, I start out maybe 3 or 4 seconds after the video starts, and the video says 4:05. And I remember they had a speed clock or a timer down there, and I remember looking down at some point and seeing a 0, but I was steady chatting about my thing, and I said to myself, am I overtime? But, they're supposed to gong you when you go overtime. But I guess they were just listening to what I was saying. But I do think I went over. But look, did you see the audience's reaction? I was actually very pleased with my 5-minute, my little final video pitch thing. It was a good 3 days. I'm going to talk about that for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to jump right into what we're doing. So it was a good 3 days. And what was interesting is that it's the Women's Business Entrepreneurial Council, and it was invited guest only, so they had maybe 140 certified WEBEC businesses along WBEs, along with maybe 25, 30 corporate sponsors, and so very nice crowd. And then, of course, the 12 finalists for the pitch contest. And there was a young lady that I saw from the very beginning. The first time I heard her pitch, I was like, wow, that's really good. And go and Google her. And the name of it is Panic Panties. I mean, just the name of it makes you say, like, wow, what is that all about? And it's actually very innovative, and it's a good idea. And but when she came in, I was talking to her, and she said I can't get beyond my nerves. And I kind of gave her a whole spiel on life and, how it's important just to live each day, and these kind of things don't matter. You're in front of a group of judges, and it's just their viewpoint on that day, and you have an opportunity to, I gave her like a little spiritual pep talk. And she started like the little teary-eyed thing, and she was like, oh, this is the best thing. And I went on upstairs and went to sleep. And then she actually won second place. And it was such a wonderful feeling, because when I went over to congratulate her, she says, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have got through. And I was like, yeah, you want to give me half of that money you got? But it was good. And then the young lady also that won third place, she and I had a wonderful time engaging in some very deep spiritual conversations prior to the things. It was just a good group of people. And I said after we all completed the pitches and people were coming up and telling you how well you did, I said several times I wouldn't want to be a judge, because I've never been involved in anything where didn't even look at it as competition. You just looked at it as an opportunity to witness what some folks are doing, and people, and then there's just such a range of products and services. I mean, it's not like there are 15 food categories or some folks that are in, government services or whatever. It's just a whole variety, and it made it really interesting, but everybody presented really well, and all of the products and services were very good. But the summit was really about environmental, social, and governance. ESG is a big thing now, and we were talking about that for 3 days. And the other two companies that did win were more leaning towards, environmental sustainability. But it was great. It was just a good thing, and the exposure was just phenomenal. And when you look at my video, you'll see how I was able to figure out how to get our popcorn in the hands of every guest that was there, along with our information. So it was really exciting, and we got a whole bunch of potential business going forward. So that's that. Thanks for entertaining me, those 2 minutes to listen to that. But that's what happened, but I wanted you to see my final thing. So there you have it. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how Jesus picked his crew, the individuals that would be in his inner circle, and we talked about how he extended the invitation to many disciples, people that had begun to follow him, people that had begun to believe in what he was doing. And of those many people that he extended an invitation to come to the top of the mount, he picked or selected 12 of them to be his personal disciples, to be the people in his inner circle. And just as I was giving that little summary of what happened over the past few days, I often wonder, when we go places, not just where we live or where we work, but when we have an opportunity to go to a conference and have an opportunity to do other things, how do we navigate those circles and that company that we can come into? How do we start selecting the people that we're going to select to be a new friend in life. You know, you exchange phone numbers, you tell people, oh, I'll come to this one lady who lived in Alabama. I met so many people from Alabama, and one person actually knew Thomasville, Alabama, where my parents were from. She started talking about her relatives there. I meant to write their names down so I could tell my relatives when I see them on Thanksgiving. But when we select, how do you select the people that you're going to commune with? You've got a company of 175 participants at a conference. You know, who's going to be the individuals that you decide you're going to have breakfast and lunch with, the people that you're going to sit beside at breakout sessions, the people that you're going to converse about what's happening at the breakout sessions together? How does that happen, or is it something more organic? In this particular case, Jesus selected people that were magnetized to him, people that he needed to feel like they were connected to his heart, you know, so that he could have them. Eventually what he was having them to do was to be his ambassadors, and to be his ambassador, as you know, is to have people be attracted to them so that they can be attracted to the message that they are sending, which was the message of Christ. So it's like an interference metallic thing where, you know, you're connected to me so that you can be connected there. And so that's what he was doing. And so I just thought it was interesting over the last few days that it didn't, you know, you don't walk around with your Bible saying, you know, hey, would you like to sit over here with me or anything? But what is it that all of these people that I ended up hanging out with or being attracted to were people that ultimately had the same commonality of talking about or discussing the things, you know, yeah, it's a lot of politics going on right now. Yeah, the elections just happened. But I'd rather be talking about some things, you know, some spiritual things, how this election is going to impact the work of the children of God and what we're trying to do and achieve, and how we're going to get people from being so depressed and all the mental anxiety and depression that our youngsters are going through right now that has the suicide rates going through the roof. So it's just interesting that you end up connecting to people, and that there's something inside of us, that energy, that light that shines, that people are able to identify with, that draws you to each other, to one another. And so now we're moving from, Mark is the only gospel that moves in this direction. In the other gospels, after Jesus selects his apostles, they experience 2 of his miracles. And that's how those gospels move. Mark doesn't talk about the miracle immediately after selecting the apostles. He goes right into this particular instance, which is just 2 verses nestled in between that and something else that he's going to do miraculously. So here they are, chapter 3, 20 and 21. And this is entitled in this particular, the Soul Care Bible for the New King James Version usually gives you some titles for groups of scriptures. And it says, a house divided cannot stand. So we're just doing 2 of the verses. There are actually 8 in this particular section. We're going to talk to just these 2 today. It says, then the multitude came together again, so that they could not so much as eat bread. But when his own people heard about this, they went out to lay hold of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you, but, you know, as a minister, you've read a million versions and you've done the commentary, so you've had to pull some things together to get to what this all means. But notice here it says, then the multitude came together again. So we're talking again, who? He extended an invitation to the people who had been following him to come to the top of the mountain. Then he was going to choose 12 unto himself that he selected. But that same multitude of people that were following him, or the same multitudes of people that had been waiting to hear him, waiting for his miracles, are upon him again. So much so, and so it says here, so much so that they could not, as much so as they could not eat bread. So what that is saying is basically that
the crowd was so much upon them that they literally could not eat bread. They had no room to eat their food, basically is what that's saying. And it's saying that to stress that if that was in fact the case, what would you and I say? You know, when the crowds are massive like that, I forget the term that people usually use, where you can be trampled. There's some term that you use, but that's what it is. And in those kinds of situations, a mob, like in those kinds of situations, that's dangerous because you can be trampled where? To death. And it says that with so many people upon them in this house, so crowded that they could not eat, which means that it was so crowded that if you move the wrong way, that you very well could be trampled. And it talks about their safety being in jeopardy. And I think this is why Mark did this, is because we always talk about the reason we're in Mark is because we want to learn how to be disciples. And Mark teaches you. It's a very short gospel because it goes right to the action part of everything that happened at the time that Jesus was walking with his disciples. And it's saying right here, after you've been selected to be in my inner circle, it is important for you to understand immediately that what? You're putting your life at risk. That you are basically foregoing your safety in order to walk the walk with Jesus. In order to be in his circle, you're going to have to experience the same things that he experiences on a regular basis. And it talks about Jesus. It talks about the character and the personality of Jesus, that he was willing to be at risk, to not live a safe life in order to do the will of his Father that sent him. And if you, the selected 12, want to be in my inner circle, if you and I, men and women of God that call ourselves disciples and Christians, want to do the will of God, then we too have to be prepared to risk our safety at times in order to walk in the ways of God. And then it talks us a little bit about but when his own people heard about this. So who are his own people? It says that after Jesus selected his disciples, in the other Gospels, remember, there are two other instances or two other events that happen before Jesus goes back. In Matthew, it says, before he goes back home. And in the Gospel of Luke, further descriptive, before he goes back to home, and it says something else that just really specifies that he must be going back to where he was living. Where was he living? What was he doing? Who are the people that recognized him? They were his family members. They were the people in his community. What community was that? Where Jesus lived in Nazareth? Where? And what was he doing there? He was a carpenter. And so the carpenter that you and I think of today, the person with the hammer that, fixes the window. No, the carpenter in that day was the one that was building ships, the one that was making house construction and doing everything else. In other words, the one that was getting paid because everybody needed him. If you were a carpenter, you had a carpenter shop. If you had a carpenter shop, you were secure. Maybe not so much as wealthy, but definitely very secure, and definitely not where you would have no place to lay your head. That is the description that we know of our Savior. Jesus is known to have not a place to lay his head. So he gave up that security, not only his safety, but the security of a well-being, to be known that you're going to be able to support yourself because you have a business as a carpenter. He walked away from that. And what did he walk away from that to do? From the perspective of these that saw him, from the perspective of his neighbors, from the perspective of the people in the community, from the perspective of his family. Here's somebody that's got a decent lifestyle living that he's making because everybody always needs his services, and he walks away from that to do what? To go preaching in the streets, That's what people, our family say, you're going over to that church again or whatever. My brother-in-law used to go around telling people I was a traveling minister, that I go visit people in hospitals. And he used to have people call me to give me somebody's name that he didn't even know. Can you go visit and pray for this person in the hospital? And so this is what Jesus did. And the people that are looking are saying, who gives up security to go
preaching in the streets where no one is paying you to preach in the streets. And then not only that, was so much going on here. I'm just trying to give you a picture of it. Not only that, who is he preaching in the streets with? The motley crew, we love to call it, the disciples that he did choose. You got a couple of fishermen, you've got the fanatical nationalist person, and you've got the tax collector. So you're hanging out with somebody that no one likes, the tax collectors. You're hanging out with people that aren't necessarily educated. And so when you do leave security and you decide, because there are people that leave what appears to be a secure life to start their own business, to follow their dream, to do whatever, but they're usually doing it with some other people that, you know, have got some ideas and some visions, and they're doing some things. Nah, Jesus was hanging out with 12 people that were not 12 wealthy, educated, town respectable type of people. And he was moving not just into doing something that he's not getting paid for, but then he's making a lot of enemies. He's beginning to become the target of the Pharisees and the Herodians, you know? And so he had all of this going on. So people that, you know, if all of a sudden somebody said, you know, do you see Dallas downtown hanging out with the people on the corner, drinking and hanging out over at the homeless shelter, what would you think? Oh, she just wants to go and help them? No, you would think I had lost my mind. And so this is exactly what his family says. It says that, but when his own people heard about this, that he's home again in this house, now we know where he is, they went to lay hold of him. So now that we've seen him, because we haven't seen him in a minute, because he's been all out here on the mountainside and in the riverboat preaching and teaching, they must lay our hand on him because he has been out of his mind, or he is out of his mind. So their whole thing is let us lay hands on him because he has gone insane. He has gone crazy. He has lost his mind. It's really funny when you think about it, because it's really interesting that I've run into people. I've been in business for a minute. I felt like Mother Goose to some of these young people that were pitching. And it's good to give advice and you know, the experience of what I too thought was going to make us millions of dollars when I first started. You know, you get caught up in that retail thing, and that's not the way to do it. And I developed a plan, and my plan is coming to fruition, and it's good. So it's just giving them some ideas and things. I felt like when I was in boot camp, and I had the girls sitting on my bunker. I felt like Mother Teresa or something. But when we learn and when we experience things in life, and God has been good to us, to allow us to see and to continue to get through life in a successful way, then it's our duty and our obligation, our responsibility to pass that on to other people. But people will think you're crazy because, you know, there are plenty of ways that I could have made millions and, you know, done a lot of things that could have been extremely lucrative, but they would have been in the ways of the world. And at the end of the day, you know, and I told several people this over the last few days, that my MO in life, you know, because everybody's talking about, what's your goal set? What's your, you know, my thing is every single day when I go to bed at night is to feel that someone has benefited from me being alive. It's as simple as that. You know, especially with the 13 years that I spent dealing with the sick and shut-in ministry. There's so many people that are on ventilators. And for whatever reason, God has them here like that for a season, or long season, or short season. But it's almost kind of like they're taking up the space because they're not able to experience people. A lot of times when I would see people at the home, they would be looking in the same direction and just no life, no vitality, no nothing. And they'd be right there in the same place 7 days later. Every Sunday I would see them. And so my thing is that for those of us who are not on a ventilator, for those of us who can move and have our senses and can interact and make a difference, then are we making a difference, or should we be like that person just taking up space? You know, and so at the end of the day, you know, has someone benefited in a positive manner from me being here? You know, and so that's nothing more than what Jesus is always teaching us to do, is that we're to be encouragers. That's all I did for the last 3 days was encourage everybody. So it wasn't so bad when I didn't get my $5, $10, or $20,000. They did give all of us $1,000 consolation prize because they just felt like all of the competitors were good. They were like, we had to go dig in our pockets because we've never seen such a group of, and that's good. And the people that, anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So they thought he was out of his mind. People are going to think that you're out of your mind when you can't swallow or talk, and yet someone calls you and didn't know that you couldn't swallow or talk, and they are crying because their nephew just died. No matter what kind of pain or trauma you're in, if you can take 5 minutes to encourage someone, then that is what we do, and that is how we do it. And this too also speaks to that point when it said that then the multitude came together again so that they could not so much as eat bread. Which is saying what? They're here in the midst of this multitude, obviously providing the multitude something that they're looking for. Preaching, teaching, healing, comfort, encouragement. That they were willing to sacrifice a meal because they couldn't eat one because they were so cramped anyway. But what does that say? Again, it talks about what Jesus is teaching them in terms of having a heart that is selfless, that, okay, it's okay, I can miss a meal because right now I'm tending to the people. And maybe I won't get my next meal because the people stay in our company, And so you learn a lot just in these two short sentences. And when you do things like that, it connects it together so clearly. When you do those sacrificial things, when you decide you're going to give up a meal in order to encourage someone or to help someone, you decide that you're going to put your life at risk in order to encourage someone or help someone, when you decide that you're going to forego your comfort and security in life, your raise or your promotion, in order that someone else can benefit from you, then people are going to think that you're out of your mind. And that's okay, because we are in this world, but we're not of this world. We already have the victory. We know where we're going, and every single thing that we do is for the glory of God. And so it doesn't matter if we're going to get rewarded for it. It doesn't matter what people think. What we need to keep in our mind at all times is that our behavior, when we're obedient, when we're trusting, when we're encouraging others, when we're looking out for our fellow man, when we're loving others as ourselves, our behavior is pleasing to God. And that is all that matters. And that's a wonderful thing, to know that what you're doing is pleasing to God, so that when you are in a pitch competition and you're not the winner, you just look at it. I told the young lady the night before the pitches were going, I was like, you have an opportunity to go and tell 160 people about this idea that you came up with. And these people may be in a position to help you with that. So does it matter if you win? You're having an opportunity to present. It's just perspective. It's how you look at things. And sometimes, and I said to one of them who had their lip poked out because they got 5,000 and they didn't get the 10 or the 20,000, you have to say, do we miss the real blessings because we're focused on something else? Because there's a blessing in everything. There's such a blessing in everything. There's such a blessing in everything. And the thing that we might think is all that really is not. And we miss where the real blessings are because we want our own thing. We want to do us, We want to be in control. We want to dictate the story, right? And we're not the creator. We are the creation. And the person that has created the story has given us a simple task in life. Live justly, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. In other words, it's not about you. It really isn't about you. Don't think that much of yourself. Think more of God and walk through life being as kind and as loving as you possibly can to your fellow man. It's really that simple. That is what he requires of us. That's what Micah 6:8 tells us. Okay? So, when we are doing these kinds of things, I just said there's something in life that's always common. That thing that's always common for the Christian is that we are always sacrificing, foregoing safety, security, comfort, when we can help other people, when we can do other things. So in my 3 days being away, in my 3 days being at
the Mayflower. I just wanted to be it. I could have very well had just run down there every day from here. But you know, the Mayflower Hotel is historic, and this one is the autograph collection, so that when you come in, you can see the wallpaper that says Bob Hope stayed here, Sophia Loren, and Walt Disney, you know. But it's an old hotel, and it's a conference, and at conferences, you get a lot of food. There's a reception every night. There's a lunch buffet, a full banquet buffet for breakfast. And it's usually a bunch of stuff that I've got to go picking the stuff that they're putting in the omelets to create me a salad or whatever. And all I wanted was just a really, really good salad. So I decided that you guys have seen the salad thing a lot of times, but we're just going to go through it just because I need to have me some salad for the next 3 days, as much as I can possibly eat. So I'm going to go through it again, but I'm going to, as I always do, tell you why we do this. And I'm also doing a lecture on Saturday, so I'm going to share this video with them because I will not be there making a salad this weekend. So when we do our salad, just like Jesus picked a foundation of people that would be magnetized towards him, like magnets, because they were just so believed in everything that he was doing. We have to start with mixed greens. We want to do mixed greens because you can't see it from here, but I have a chart here that I keep in the kitchen. It goes through all of the different minerals and vitamins that the human body needs. It talks about the proteins, the fats, such and such. So it has these columns, and it's colorful, and it tells you, you know, the colors correspond to the types of foods that they're talking about. So in each column, it tells you what food groups, what items would give you the best B12. So right here for B12, under vitamins, you see fortified products, soy milk, you see cereals, you see margarine, you see nutritional yeast. Yay, that's the only one that we're eating in that group. Then over here for vitamin D, you see a picture of the sunlight. And then you see fortified cereals, soy milk, margarine. Under vitamin E, it says olive oil, tomatoes, avocados, apples, carrots. So it gives you all of this. However, when you look at the whole full list, especially when you take into consideration the fats and just everything, the fiber down on that end, you will see dark green leafy vegetables in most of those columns. Now, so whether you remember whether or not you get vitamin A or the minerals calcium from it, doesn't matter. You just know that dark leafy greens are really in a lot of those columns. So I need to make sure that I have me plenty of leafy greens as often and as much as possible. Okay? So we start with the greens. Now, here's the thing. I'm putting this together so you can see it. This is a relatively small amount for me because I only need it for about 2 or 3 days. But I'm going to be eating very large bowls of it for today, this evening, and tomorrow. But for those of you who have large families or you live by yourself and you only want to do this once or twice a week, my suggestion would be is to take all of you can either do it just like this, where you chop up everything and you put them in individual containers and cover them. And then every day that you want to have your salad is like going to a salad bar. And so you take a handful of salad greens and put them in your personal bowl. You know, start out with a bowl. And so you take a handful of salad greens and then you go and you put some onions, you put just like you're at a salad bar, but you're not at a salad bar, and you're at a better than a salad bar. Because when you go to a salad bar, when you see corn, it's probably come out of a can. When you see the other things, they probably have used regular iodized salt as preservatives. So be very careful when you go to some of the salad bars. And the salad bars are going to have chopped up eggs and a bunch of shredded cheese and stuff like that you don't want either. You know, so you just kind of, you know, they'll probably have tomatoes that aren't organic. You want to pay for organic tomatoes. You know, organic tomatoes, apples, they're, you know, the dirty dozen. You want to make sure that you're getting those organic. So that's something that you can do. That's one option. But if you have a family of 3 or 4 and you're going to go through a big, huge bowl like this in a day or 2 or a setting or 2, then it's okay to just go ahead and put your greens in there. And the reason I say that is because obviously they're going to wilt a little bit, you know, and you don't want to eat wilted vegetables if you don't have to. So also if you've got one of the little swirl things so that when you do wet your greens to try to rinse them just a tad bit, then you can dry that out. But it's all good. This is not going to last, be around long. So I start out with mixed greens because they're dark leafy greens. And so dark leafy greens are good for a whole bunch of minerals and vitamins, but we always look at greens as what? A green colored food. And green colored foods do what? That's right, they clean the blood. So we're starting out with some clean blood agent here. And so we start with the regular mixed greens, and then I want to add a little bit more calcium, a little bit more iron. So I am going to add some spinach, and rhubarb. And then figure out how to get this open. So this, I just mix in together. There we have it. So that's your base. Now, the trick to doing a salad is that you have your light, heavy greens because you want that to be your base. But then you want to be careful how you begin to top your salad. I always say you can look at it kind of like a lasagna. I'm going to dry out these greens now that I'm thinking about it. Because I want it to be preserved as long as possible. Okay? So I'm just going to dry it. I think I put a little bit too much water in here. So just take a paper towel and dry it if you don't have, like I said, one of the little, I forget what they call them, but you put the salad in, it twirls around, and extracts the water. So now what we want to do is take our heavier seasonings or heavier ingredients. Let's see here. Move some of this over to the side so that you can see how easy we can do this, because I'm always just kind of baffled when people say, I want the salad that you do. And I'm like, I have the videos of the salad. They're like, oh, but I can't do it like you do it. I'm sorry. I mean to mock anyway. So now we top it with one of the heavier items, which are red onions. So why do we use red onions? Because red onions are like the sister. You have apples and pears. Both of them are extremely high in fiber. Both of them have pectin. You have oranges and lemons and grapefruits. They all have lots of natural citric acid in it. And so now you have red onions who are like garlic. So they're like sisters and brothers to garlic, twins. And so why do we use onions and garlic in food? Because of the high sulfur content, primarily anisin, which gives you good sulfur for the body, which helps to balance out the cellular level. Okay, I'm saving some of these because I'm going to put them in something else later. So we have red onions, and then we go with another heavy item, and that's going to be our mixed seeds. So you always want to put sunflower and pumpkin seeds. So what color are sunflower and pumpkin seeds? We love to do this. You guys probably already know by now. So sunflower seeds come from the sunflower. So that would be a yellow food. And yellow foods do what? They're natural laxatives. So this obviously has some good fiber and potassium content to it. They're mixed in with pumpkin seeds. Now that we've done the trick for the sunflower seeds, you probably know what color food the pumpkin seeds are. And they're not green. They come from the orange pumpkin, so they're considered an orange food. And orange foods, like our orange peppers here, are what we have for the skin condition. Our orange peppers as well as our carrots. And they give you a considerable amount of beta-carotene. And that's why when you're having a multiplicity of colors on a daily basis, which is what you should always strive to do, you want to make sure you have twice as much of the orange-colored foods, because of the fact that you want to get the beta-carotene, and it's a little harder to get as much in terms of volume from that than you get, say, the yellow potassium from the corn. Okay, now while we're here, we have some cranberries, dried cranberries. You want to put these on the bottom. Why? Because they're dried cranberries. And so dried cranberries are like what? They're like the nuts that we've talked about. They come from a shell. And anything that's dry goes slightly into a state of dehydration. So to rehydrate it, to bring it back to life, typically what you would do is you would put your raisins in a small amount of water. And also, to get more of the nutrients from dried raisins, you always kind of want to slice them with a knife, and that's going to activate some of that. What we're going to do to kill two birds with one stone is that we put the dried cranberries, and we're going to put some dried raisins in here in a second. We put them on the bottom. And so when they're on the bottom and they're rubbing shoulders with the pumpkin and sunflower seeds, they're going to get that slight little thing that you would do with a knife. And basically all you're doing is breaking the shell, the cellulose level of it. Okay, it's just like the seeds, the chia seeds and the flax seeds. You have to break through that shell in order to actually get to the nutrient base. So we do that, and then we're going to go back and do the same thing for the raisins. And because we're putting it on the bottom of the salad, one of the reasons that we eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables is because of the natural amount of water content that's in it. And so when you're doing that, you have a higher water content of food, which allows you sometimes to decrease the amount of fluids that you have. But being under these wet peppers, this wet raw corn, the wet herbs, the wet tomatoes, the wet celery, and they're going to get the moisture that they need to become rehydrated. That doesn't make sense, especially after sitting there for a day or two. Okay? So then we start with there. Then we want to do just that. We want to add our peppers. We use a variety of colors: yellow peppers, green peppers, and red peppers. Yellow peppers have the potassium. They have fiber. They're going to be good for natural laxative qualities. The red peppers, red foods are arterial stimulants. They move the blood. Green foods clean the blood. Red foods move the blood. And peppers, you want to keep the little seeds in there. Some people scrape the seeds out of the middle. The seeds have a lot of medicinal properties associated with it. Red, a variety of colored peppers does the three characteristics that I just talked about. But in addition to that, you get a ton of your vitamins, vitamin A and C. You get a lot of the naturally occurring citric acid. All of these are great for cleaning the system. And then we add our main three. I tell people on a daily basis, you should always try to have celery and carrots. And then just throw the beets in for good measure. Why the celery and the carrots? Because we live and die at the cellular level. And what makes us sick, what gives us disease, when there's an imbalance in those cells. What makes the cells imbalanced? You have the cell, and so you want to balance the cells. So you have water and fluid on the inside of the cell. You have water and fluid on the outside of the cells. You want to try and keep that in balance. The water inside of the cell is called intracellular fluid. Intracellular fluid predominantly is characterized by potassium. The best natural source of potassium, organically speaking, not the growing process, but organically meaning that it is filled with hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, would be carrots. And so we use carrots to protect the intracellular fluid and to help keep our cells in a state of balance internally. Now, outside of the cell, you have the same thing. You have water and fluid, which we call extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid predominantly is characterized by sodium. The natural organic sodium source that is recommended for the highest quality, having that hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen in it, comes from celery. So one of the best things that you could have when the body is not well is carrot and celery juice, because that is going to go directly to your potassium and sodium levels, which control your cellular levels. When you're usually in the hospital and they don't know what's going on with you and they have to give you an IV, if you look on the IV bag, typically you're going to see sodium, potassium, magnesium, iodine. These are the main minerals that keep the body well. I always tell people, I was telling someone the other day, people love to start telling you their problems when they find out, what you do. Oh, I went and Googled you. So anyway, you tell people that's where you start, because typically most illnesses and diseases are a direct result of some type of mineral deficiency. It could be an excessive amount of minerals, but that's usually not the case. Typically, it's a mineral deficiency. And so one of the best places to start would be with your sodium and potassium levels. And that is a best way. When your blood pressure is high and you want that diastolic number to come down 5 or 10 points in 5 or 10 minutes, then go drink you some carrot juice. It's amazing. And so that's what we get from the celery. And then we do beets. Beets, why? Because beets are what we call a kidney organ food. Do you know? Beets are what strengthens the kidneys. Your kidneys are huge in terms of what? That's why you have two. Because they're filtering your blood on a regular basis. So we're going to use all of this. I'm making something else this evening, so I want to have a little bit of everything to put into it. So we do that. So burgundy foods, good for the kidneys. So beets, definitely, always something. Anybody have dialysis, diabetic, any problems like that, you want to be doing some beet juice when you can. Then we're going to add the carrots. So if you're ever going to do salad, you always want carrots, beets, celery, and corn. That's my 4 favorites. And then, you know, even if I don't have the mixed greens, the carrots, the beet, the celery, and the corns is good for me. And notice here too, for those of you who are not like totally here, you can go to the store and get you some pita bread or that laffa bread or naan bread, and then you can take all of these toppings and some vegan shredded cheese, some Daya or the other Vega Life, and put it on your little naan bread, and then you can take your little same salad toppings and put them on there and have you a nice little veggie pizza that's extremely healthy and better for you, that you're going to love because it's got such great stuff in it. I'm moving kind of slow. So then we want to add some other stuff. So we have tomatoes. Some of you feel a little funny about tomatoes. I love tomatoes. Tomatoes are great for you. They are a red food. They will help to move the blood. They have great vitamin A, and if you go across the chart, you'll see tomatoes in a couple of areas. So what I do is I take cherry tomatoes and either slice them in half or quarter them, and then I take chopped pieces of fresh garlic. You want to use fresh garlic just like the red onions, because nothing can survive in an atmosphere with garlic. I don't know who I said that to yesterday. I think I said that during the pitch when I was talking about the garlic popcorn. I was like, I think I got twisted on something mentally when I looked down and that clock said 0. And I was like, in the garlic overdose, nothing can survive in an environment. Shoot me in the head, I said when I watched the thing. And so we take our chopped garlic, not minced. I chop mine because I think it's important to eat big chunks of garlic on a daily basis. And then I take and put Italian seasonings in and just let it saute or marinate, so to speak, with the tomatoes and the fresh garlic. And then I put a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. So now you just kind of douse this through the salad. And if you were here, you could smell. Now it smells like Italian pizza. And then we're quick here. I love Kalamati olives. They're my favorite. You can use the regular California Ripe. You can use whatever you want, but you want some olives in there. That just gives it nice flavor. And then you have your fresh cilantro. Cilantro is green, so it's definitely going to clean the blood. But the medicinal properties from fresh cilantro, parsley, thyme, any of your herbs, it's just amazing what it does. Just smelling it, probably. And that's the other thing. If you're not feeling well, it's a really cool day here today. Got a little chills, a little sniffles, being out a little too long. You come in and you put your salad together, and voila, you're already going to feel better because of all of the medicinal properties associated with the foods that you're eating. So quickly moving along here. So this is the base of our salad. This is the most important thing, is the seaweed. Now, seaweed is not even, I don't even know if it's up there, but seaweed gives you a ton of everything. I tell people you want your hair, your skin, your nails to be strong, your hair to be long, your skin to be wrong. You put some dried seaweed into a container and just fill it with some distilled or some filtered water. And then it's going to fluff up like this, where it kind of looks like collard greens. And you definitely sprinkle that on your salad. Now, typically I would put it on my individual servings, but I'm just not thinking straight. So I put that in, and that is going to be what you call your super, super, super food booster there. And then this becomes your basic salad. So then you just kind of mix your stuff up. See, isn't that, I mean, just when you look at the colors, you just feel happy. You just feel happy, and it just makes it beautiful, and it makes you want to eat it. It makes your friends want to eat it. It's a great way to just start getting people healthy that wouldn't ordinarily want to be healthy or wouldn't think about being healthy. It's just amazing what a nice, colorful salad will do. I don't know where my bowl is. Okay, so I found the bowl. So you have your basic salad here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these into Tupperware containers, glass containers, whatever containers you have, Ziploc bags, and you can divide it into large or small salad servings, and that is going to be the bulk of what you need to get started. And isn't that beautiful? And you bring this to Thanksgiving dinner and let people have, whether it's a small cup full or a larger bowl full. There's some extra stuff I had. I could have put the other in here. And so then they'll have all of that, and you eat the raw salad before your cooked meal, and it's going to help to digest the cooked food better. Do you know what I mean? All right, so that's our salad. And so like I said, this for me will probably be good to get me through Saturday, maybe 3 good days. And then that way, even if you don't know what you're going to eat, you don't feel like eating, you can have salad 2 or 3 times a day. So this becomes my base on a regular, whatever. And you can do it or not. But I don't like my avocados to sit in my salad. So take an avocado. Avocado is what color? Green. It has an excellent amount of good natural fat in it. So you just take your avocado. I try to eat an avocado a day. The fat that's in avocado is excellent. Excellent for the heart. The oils are good for your skin. It's just vitamins. So you take your avocado and just slice that up on top of your salad. And depending on what type of tomatoes you have, those tomatoes were a little on the unripe side for me. They weren't as soft. It's summertime, so it's not like you can grab them from the garden and they're just like perfect. You buy them from the store, they always have some issue. So I usually will put my avocado on top. I usually don't put a lot of tomatoes, but that's a relatively small salad. On a larger salad, I won't put my tomatoes in there. I'll put my tomatoes on top of my avocado after I've sliced it, and then I'll put some additional seaweed on there. And then I put raw honey. This is my friends that came from their bee thing. Don't you love live video? And oh, let's see. So we're gonna try to open that, and then you'll take a little. Put a little more olive oil on top. And then I usually have a combination of herbs, which I don't. So I'm going to show you how to put that together so that you always have that as well. Then for a small salad like this, I'll probably use a good tablespoon of raw honey. That's just me personally. I know some of you are not into honey. You don't have to do that. And so let me just show you how I would do a quick seasoning mix. So I have some paprika. So I put I need a new jar. I usually have a 12 ounce container. So I put quite a bit of paprika, quite a bit of cumin. And then again, this is up to you. These are just some of the staple ones I use. I don't have any turmeric. I'm putting a little more Italian seasonings in here, even though I usually put that in with the tomatoes. I definitely put quite a bit of nutritional yeast. Probably more nutritional yeast as a base than anything else. A little curry powder. If you had turmeric, you definitely want to use turmeric for the nutritional value, medicinal value. I have my Chinese blend of cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg. I'll put a little in there. The only thing I didn't put on the salad are my nuts. They're in the pantry. So I take walnuts and I'll put a little bit of ground ginger in, not as much ground ginger. So you'll take your walnuts and pecans and put them into a bowl. You'll add something like the Chinese 5-spice, cumin, allspice, cinnamon, and nutmeg, and sprinkle that over the nuts. Add a couple of tablespoons of raw honey, maybe a tablespoon of maple syrup, and just let that sit in a container. And then when you have your salad, you'll put those on top, and then that creates a nice little base. So that's my seasoned blend. Just kind of put all those spices together. You mix them up. Spices they're like natural, the fresh herbs, the cilantro, parsley, thyme, or whatever you want to use. Things like turmeric, paprika, Italian seasonings, the medicinal properties associated with them are huge. And not only that, they give you seasoning and the nutritional yeast. I mean, bam, just before its namesake, as I said in my video yesterday. You get all of the extra nutrients. So you're getting yourself some extra fiber and protein just from using your seasoning blend. And that's it. You might want to add a little more oil or not. With the texture and the wetness of all of the chopped vegetables that are in there, you don't really need anything else. And it's just amazing. It's just a salad. Did you know that down is spelled backwards? It's salad with an extra L for love leafy greens. Next year at the national conference, guess who's going to be doing this demo at the women's neck? Watch. Okay. Don't worry about your security. Don't worry about your safety. Worry about pleasing God and the things that you do in life. Eat well so that you can be well, so that you'll be strong enough to not be able to have to get a meal every time, and you can sit with someone in hospice as they're transitioning for 12 hours without thinking about going to a place to eat. So fortify your body so that you're always prepared and ready to do the work of God. And just live in a way that's pleasing. Okay? I hope that's been helpful. I know it's been long, but it's all good. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Oh, have a good Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. And just, keep that attitude of being thankful and grateful in situations. Not necessarily for the situation. Don't be thankful or grateful that you're homeless, but be thankful and grateful in every situation, knowing that God is with you in every situation. Shalom.